Comic was dumbfounded. When Sparkle said she'd set up a blind date for him on Hearts and Hose Day, he wasn't expecting this. Before him sat a tall, gorgeous, pink-coated alicorn with a rainbow mane and golden glowing eyes. She had a superior air to her, but her face was kind and welcoming.
You know, when Sparkle Chord told me I would be spending my day with a surprise stallion, I certainly wasn't expecting someone like you.
The mare said in her charming Valley Girl accent.
But I must say, you are quite, unique, I suppose.
Comic simply blinked. The blinding beauty of this mare was almost too much for him. He wasn't sure if he should be cringing or in awe at the sight of her. The two sat in a small cafe table in silence for some time, Comic awkwardly glancing around at the forest green walls. This continued for several minutes until the mare interjected.
Well, are you going to take me somewhere or not?
She said, sounding a little impatient. Comic gave her a confused look.
This is it?
The mare looked horrified.
Are you kidding me? This is it? I was promised an evening of fun, mystery, romance, and not some cheesy meal at a cafe.
The mare slammed her hoof on the table, shaking the plates full of cheesecake. So far, this was not worth the 30 bits Sparkle had given her in exchange for going on this date. Comic flinched, a sudden fear of the mare spreading through him. He had an odd feeling that she was going to turn him into French toast if he didn't do something to turn this day around soon. Gulping, he gave the mare a nervous smile.
What I meant to say was that, this was only the beginning. I was actually just about to take you,
Comic paused, glancing around the room for something, anything interesting to do. The mare gave him an impatient glare as the silence dragged on. Finally, Comic spotted a poster for an evening gala on one of the walls. Perfect, he thought to himself. Returning his attention to the golden-eyed mare, Comic's grin became more confident.
To the gala this evening. It doesn't start for a few more hours, so I figure we would go sightseeing around town before Hoof.
Comic gave an awkward chuckle, hoping this explanation would be believable. There was a pause. Comic's smile dropped slightly, worried the mare had caught on to him. However, his worries were relieved as she gave him a huge grin.
Oh my, a gala! Why didn't you say so in the first place? That sounds like a wonderful way to spend the evening.
She said, her voice cheery as ever. Comic let out a sigh of relief. That was close. Jumping up from her chair, the mare pulled Comic out of his seat with her magic, suddenly filled with a new sensation of life and joy.
Come on, we've got plenty to do before the gala tonight. Let's go!
She shouted, running out the door and taking to the sky, Comic in tow. After around 30 minutes of daring and dazzling air tricks from the mare, she and Comic landed in front of a high-end clothing boutique. The mare was in perfect condition, and Comic extremely dizzy, feeling like he was going to throw up.
How do you survive all the spinning?
He questioned, swaying a bit as he regained his stability. Flight was not something he was accustomed to. The mare simply smiled.
Oh, it was nothing. I've always been good at tricks like that.
She said cheerily, as if this was completely normal. Something about this mare was beginning to seem suspicious to Comic. The mare, however, did not notice his skeptical look, and simply continued her train of thought.
Now then, since we're going to a fancy gala, we need some new outfits. You can't exactly wear, that to a high-class event.
She said, gesturing to Comic's blue tank top with a disgusted look. Comic took offense to this, and was about to object, but was quickly dragged into the store before he could say anything. The store itself was rather small and quite crowded, with various suits and dresses hanging about the store and on display. At the sales counter, there was a bright-eyed young mare who quickly rushed the pair with a friendly grin.
Welcome to Lavender Boutique, the finest selection of formal wear in all of Manhattan. How may I help you today?
The tall, pink alicorn turned to the magenta-maned mare.
Hello there! We're looking to purchase some formal wear for the gala tonight. I don't suppose you could help me and my partner here with selecting some matching outfits?
The mare's grin grew even wider.
But of course! It would be an honor to assist a mare of your prestige, princess.
she said, dashing off momentarily to begin searching for outfits. Comic's jaw dropped. Princess? How in equestria did Sparkle set him up with a princess? More importantly, how come he'd never heard of her before? Shaking off some of his surprise, he managed to work up the sense to ask a question.
If you don't mind me asking, what exactly are you princess of?
He inquired, his tone puzzled.
Why, I'm the princess of love, of course.
She replied in a proud tone. Comic gave her a skeptical look.
But isn't that supposed to be Cadence?
Oh no, silly. She's the ruler of the Crystal Empire. She has no say in Equestria.
But isn't Equestria part of...
Before Comic could finish his sentence, the sales pony returned with a beautiful Caribbean blue dress and a matching tuxedo.
Here you go.
She said, holding up the two garments. Comic turned his attention to the pony, still horribly confused by the previous conversation. The gorgeous Alicorn mare with him smiled at the sales pony.
Why, thank you, darling. I shall try mine on at once.
She said, walking off to the fitting room. Pausing momentarily, she glanced behind her.
Oh, and make sure my date's outfit is fitted accordingly. I would like both of us to look stellar for this evening.
Without another word, the mare made her way to the fitting room. Comic gulped nervously as the sales pony turned to him. This was not going to be a pleasant evening for him. The sun was beginning to set over the Manhattan skyline, as Comic waited patiently for his date to finish her fitting. It had been 3 hours since the Alicorn had walked off, and he had begun to wonder what was taking her so long. However, the wait was soon over, as the rainbow-maned mare emerged from the dressing room at last.
Well, what do you think?
She said, flipping her sparkling mane and striking a pose. The dress looked stunning on her, the plain aqua color somehow complementing the mare perfectly, her shining eyes glowing even brighter now.
You look nice.
Comic said flatly. He was less impressed and more confused. The entire day had been full of doing so many odd things, and this mare seemed almost too perfect to be true. It was almost as if she was some kind of... No, it couldn't be. Those things were only legends made up to scare foals. Snipping out of his train of thought, he noticed that the Alicorn mare was staring at him funny.
Nice? Is that all you have to say?
She looked shocked and slightly offended. Comic bit his lip. The feeling of nervousness had overtaken him again. He was positive that this horribly stuffy suit was affecting his brain somehow, and that was why he was at such a loss of words.
I was gonna say you're, stunning, beautiful, charming?
He stammered, shooting out the first 3 adjectives that popped in his head. The mare relaxed a bit.
Much better.
She nodded. Comic felt a sense of release flooding through him. Just made it. Taking her attention from Comic, the Alicorn mare turned to the sales pony.
Now then, how much will it be for all of this?
She asked, her tone gentle. The sales pony quickly hopped over to the register, punching in a few numbers.
Let's see. For the dress and the suit, it'll come to 15,000 bits.
Comic nearly passed out at the mention of this number.
15,000?
He stammered, his jaw dropping. He had no idea fancy clothes cost so much. The Alicorn mare, however, seemed perfectly calm.
Very well then, darling. Here you are.
She said, summoning the correct amount of bits from thin air and placing them on the counter.
Oh, and there's a 300-bit tip in there for you as well.
She smiled at the sales pony, who returned the smile with a grin.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
She said, captivated by the amount of money sitting before her. The Alicorn simply nodded, and headed for the door with Comic close behind. On her way out, the sales pony shouted,
Have fun at the gala.
before the door closed behind them. Comic stared at the mare in complete shock. Where the hey did she get 15,000 bits from? That was more money than most ponies can make in a lifetime. There was no way that she had all that cash just lying around.
Did you just spend your life savings on those outfits or something?
Comic asked, his tone somewhere between sarcasm and shock. The mare simply laughed at this.
Oh no, darling. I have infinite money. That was just some spare change.
She said with a smile. Comic blinked in shock, his expression changing to one of sheer horror. There was no way. But so far, everything had matched the description. Rainbow mane, unexplained alicorn princess, perfection, infinite cash. He was on a date with a Mary Sue.
Something wrong?
The mayor asked, noticing Comic's look of terror. Comic was silent for a moment, not noticing the mayor's question. How could Sparkle have set him up with a Mary Sue? They were known to be the most horrid characters in all the land. Why in the name of Celestia did she think this was a good idea? Comic's train of thought was suddenly broken by a slap to the face.
Hey, are you listening to me?
The Mary Sue said, looking slightly irritated. Comic blinked a few times, returning to his senses.
Sorry about that. I zoned out for a minute.
He said, sounding somewhat drained.
What were you saying?
Mary Sue let out a sigh, looking almost a little worried.
I was asking if you were okay. You seem really scared all of a sudden.
She said, sounding uncharacteristically concerned. Comic was slightly puzzled. Mary Sues weren't supposed to care about anyone but themselves. So why was she checking to see if he was all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry.
He looked down at the ground. This was all very puzzling to him. Although the realization that his date was a Mary Sue had explained a lot of things about her. It also made many more things very confusing. The mare had shown some form of actual emotion, and seemed to have a personality of her own. Somehow, in spite of all the legends saying Mary Sue's had no personality at all, the weirdest thing was, he actually kind of enjoyed her company. For whatever reason, spending the day with this Mary Sue had actually been somewhat enjoyable. It seemed impossible, but maybe Mary Sue's weren't all that bad. Either that, or the cheesecake he'd eaten earlier was a little past its expiration date. Looking back at Mary Sue, Comic noticed that she was a little stressed. Stress, another thing Mary Sues are supposed to be incapable of experiencing.
Hey, are you okay? You look worried.
The bright-eyed alicorn tore her attention away from a particularly fascinating cloud to look back to Comic.
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering what time it is.
She said, putting on a smile. Comic pulled out his phone, glancing down to check the time.
It's 6:30.
Comic said, putting his phone away.
Why?
The mayor's smile dropped a little.
What time did you say the gala was?
Comic's eyes went wide. He had completely forgotten about the gala.
7?
And it's all the way across town, yes?
She said, looking more worried by the moment. How she knew where the gala was, he didn't know. But it hardly mattered considering the sudden tenseness of the situation.
Oh, horse feathers!
Comic said, the stress getting to him as well. The mayor's ears dropped.
So, I'm guessing that means we need to hurry and get there then?
She said, her expression tense. Comic simply nodded.
But how are we gonna get there on time? It's not like we can Superman our way across town.
Comic said, throwing his hoof into the air. The mayor simply smiled at him.
Actually,
She said, flaring her wings. Comic looked surprised. Of course! How could he have forgotten that this mare was an alicorn?
Mary Sue, you're a genius!
He cheered, grinning widely. The Mary Sue paused, her smile dropping.
what did you just call me?
She said, raising an eyebrow. Comic froze up. He never meant to say that aloud. It just kinda slipped out. He didn't exactly know the mare's name either, so...
Never mind that. We have to go now or we're gonna be late.
Comic prompted. The alicorn nodded.
Right. Ready for takeoff?
Comic responded with a nod.
Let's do it.
He said, trying not to show his nerves. After his earlier experience, flying wouldn't have been his first choice of travel. But nothing else would get them there fast enough, so he was willing to stomach it. With a smile, the Mary Sue lifted Comic with her magic once more, and took off into the air at top speed. The two ponies soared above the pale pink clouds, which seemed to glow in contrast to the purple night sky. They swooped, soared, and loop-de-looped through the atmosphere, as the city below zoomed past them. For the few moments they were up there, it was actually really pretty. Soon, however, the Mary Sue and Comic Sans landed back on solid ground, right in front of the building that the gala was being hosted in. Comic, although thoroughly dizzy, had actually quite enjoyed that short flight, and although his mane was a mess, the alicorn's mane was, as usual, in pristine condition.
Phew, just in time.
The mayor said, grinning at Comic. The stallion simply nodded, still regaining his balance. He had to admit, if he hadn't been with a Mary Sue, they might have missed the gala entirely. Smiling, he and his date made their way to the door. It was at that moment he realized he had forgotten to purchase tickets. Standing at the door was a large guard pony, whose expression was stoic and serious.
"Tickets, please,"
He said in a deadpan tone. Comic smiled awkwardly, giving a nervous chuckle. He really hoped part of Mary Sue's power was getting them into the gala magically. Instead, the alicorn simply stared at him expectantly.
Well?
She prompted, smiling impatiently. All this time, they'd been running around planning to go to the gala without tickets. The stallion at the door cleared his throat impatiently. This was not good.
I
Comic stammered, glancing around awkwardly. What was he going to do? He didn't have any tickets on Hoof, but he didn't want to disappoint the alicorn either. Suddenly, as if on cue, Sparkle Chord appeared at the door from inside.
Don't worry, they're with me.
She said, giving the guard a confident smile. The guard, rather confused, simply nodded and stepped aside.
"Oh, of course. My apologies. Please enjoy your evening,"
He said, nodding to Comic and Mary Sue. Comic, slightly surprised, simply stepped through the door, the alicorn by his side. Sparkle greeted the two with a wide smile.
Hey there, guys.
She said cheerily.
How's your day?
it's great,
Comic said, still a little confused. Then Mary Sue nodded in agreement.
but how did you know we would be here?
Comic inquired. Sparkle simply laughed.
Oh, it was simple. The gala was the premier event for Hearts and Hooves Day in Manhattan, so I figured you'd both want to come here. So I told the guard that we were here with 2 other ponies, but they would be arriving late. Seems like he had forgotten, though. Sorry about that.
Comic blinked in shock. How did this mare manage to accurately predict everything that was going to happen? It was as if she'd written their entire day. This time, it was the alicorn's turn to ask a question.
We?
She inquired, curious as to Sparkle's use of a plural noun.
Oh, right. Caldio's here with me, too.
She said, waving to the red-maned coat. He waved back with a smile. Comic couldn't help but smirk at this. Of course she'd been there with Kildio.
Any Skittles? I'll leave you 2 alone for a bit. Wouldn't want to interrupt your romantic evening.
She giggled, grinning at the chance to tease instead of being teased for once. Nodding to the two, she trotted back to Kildio.
Enjoy your evening!
She called behind her. Comic waved after Sparkle, turning to the Mary Sue after a moment.
So, wanna dance?
He asked, smiling awkwardly. The alicorn grinned, her pink face turning a hue pinker.
I thought you'd never ask.
She stammered, her entire demeanor suddenly somewhat shy.
I'd love to.
Comic found himself blushing as well as he took the mare's hoof, though he wasn't sure why. The two made their way to the dance floor, and the orchestra began playing a slow, romantic tune. Smiling as they stared into each other's eyes, the pair began to dance. As the song played on, the 2 ponies glided across the floor, twirling about gracefully. Even though today had started out rough, everything had turned out all right in the end. In spite of what everyone said, it seemed to Comic that perhaps Mary Sue's weren't all that bad after all. Eventually, the song came to an end, and Comic and the alicorn mare ended their dances. The two smiled at each other, their faces both glowing red.
That was nice.
Comic said, finding himself at a loss of words. The alicorn nodded, only able to smile.
You know, I was wrong about you.
She said, looking off to the ground for a moment.
At first, I thought you were just another boring old unicorn.
She paused, as if to chuckle at her own mistake.
But I was wrong. You're really special.
She said as she turned to meet Comic's gaze once more.
I've never met any pony like you before.
Comic felt his blush deepen a bit, flattered by the compliment.
I've never met any pony like you either.
He laughed, though he was actually serious. But now he saw that she had an actual personality to her. She could feel emotion, she could try and fail at something, just like any other pony. She was different from the other Mary Sues. She was special. It was at this moment that Comic realized that he had gone the entire day without knowing the mayor's name. Feeling rather stupid for forgetting to ask her name earlier, he decided that now was a better time than ever to do so.
Hey, I just realized I never asked your name.
He asked, laughing a little bit. He hoped that the Alicorn mare wouldn't be mad at him for bringing this up. She, however, only laughed.
Oh my, I thought you already knew. My apologies.
She said, seeming perfectly cheery.
Would you like me to tell you?
Yes?
Comic said, a little confused. He thought he had already made that quite clear.
All right then, I'll tell you.
She said, smiling.
My name is Princess Alexandria Sparkle Pants Rainbow Sprinkles III.
Comic simply blinked. Of course that was her name. He shouldn't have been so surprised, considering who he was talking to. But still, oh well, he can't win 'em all, he thought to himself, shrugging it off with a smile. Putting aside all questions and confusions, he and Alex spent the rest of the night dancing and enjoying the festivities. Although there had been a few hiccups, this really had turned out to be the best Hearts and Hooves Day ever. The end.
Credits. The Perfect Date was written by Sparkle Chord as part of Comic Sans Pony's Holiday Hijinks I Don't Care, I Ship It contest. The cover art is also by Sparkle Chord, starring the Looney Turtle as the narrator, Comic Sans Pony as himself and the guard at the gala, Sparkle Chord as Princess Alexandria Sparkle Pants Rainbow Sprinkles III and herself, and Cadet Redshirt as the sales pony.